We're happy to have you here today. We have two speakers, and they're both current students, and they did interesting work this summer. So the first one, before I do that, those of you who have on the Natural Science t-shirt, please stay after for a few minutes. We want to take a picture of all of us in our gear. Yeah. So we'll gather down here is what we'll do after this is over. Rachel Hendershot is the first one. Yes. She's a math major and a computer science minor, and she completed an internship at Auto Owners in Lansing this summer, and she did it in the IT, the information technology area, and maybe she'll tell you this, but she was offered a job at the end of the summer for when she graduates in May. Yay! Her parents are very happy about that. So, Rachel, come and share with us.
Can you guys hear me? Yes? Okay. If not, I can talk louder. Okay, I'll talk loud too. So, like Garnett was very nice to say, my name is Rachel. I'm a senior here, math major, computer science minor. I got into the computer science department here at Spring Arbor. I was talking a lot with Mary Hayward after my freshman year, actually the end of my freshman year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved math, but other than that, I didn't want to teach with it, so I didn't know the options for that. Mary encouraged me to take the first of a few computer science courses, Foundations of Computing, and so I took that my sophomore year, and I really enjoyed it. It had a lot to do with math and logic. So after that, I decided to add that on as my minor, and so working with both Mary and Garnett, I was able to kind of get into this career field. So today I'm going to talk mainly about my internship at Auto Owners Insurance. I'm going to talk about how I became involved with them. I'm going to talk about my experience there and what I learned from there and moving forward from there. So first, the Auto Owners Insurance, they do this thing every year called the IT and Actuarial Day, which is where they invite a lot of students who are studying math and computer science and actuarial science up, and they kind of tell you about their company, and they tell you about how you can get involved with them and the different opportunities for you there at their company. And it was last February, and I wasn't actually able to go because I had a conflict with another class, so that was kind of a bummer. But I was encouraged by, I think Garnett encouraged me to contact them still just to find out about the different opportunities there. So I emailed some of the recruiters, and they said, go ahead and apply and send us a resume and a transcript, and we'll let you know from there what you can do, how you can get involved. And so I did that, didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, let's just try it. So I applied, and I set up an interview. March 6th, I had an interview, and they offered me an internship position the next week. So they obviously liked me or something. And the application process, all I did was apply online. I had to send a resume, pretty simple. I had to send some references, so I sent Mary and Garnett's name over and some transcripts, and they look over it and they go from there. The interview process was pretty simple, actually. It was kind of intimidating because Auto Owners Insurance, the main headquarters, it's a national company, and the main headquarters is in Lansing. That's where I worked. And there's about 4,000 people who work at that building, and then they have offices within 26 other states. So it's really large company, so it's really intimidating kind of to go in there. But you know, you go in and the recruiters talk to you and they're like, okay, we're just going to do 4 simple interviews. You're going to meet with 4 different people within the IT department to kind of give you a feel for the different areas that we have here. And so I met with 4 different people. They were about 30 minutes each, just talking about strengths, weaknesses, kind of standard interview questions. Just getting to know who I was as a worker too, and if I would fit well with them or not. So it was pretty simple. And so when I walked in, I was really scared, but then I walked out and I was pretty confident. I felt pretty prepared, so that was cool. While I was there, I did a 10-week internship program, and they're really helpful in working with you as long as you can work there. I had my cross-cultural this past May. I went to Uganda for 3 weeks, and so I wasn't able to do as long of an internship program, but they still were willing to work with me and let me do 10 weeks of work there. And they really just want it to be valuable for both you and for them. They want you to get something out of it as well as them. So I worked there for 10 weeks. I worked in the IT department, but under that I worked in the HR and Financial Systems department, which works with, well, I worked heavily with the human resources part of that. And so I had 2 main jobs while I was there. I worked in the access databases that human resources works with to kind of maintain all of their employee records and things like got to do some web development for the Human Resources internal intranet. It was cool because both of those things, I had never done any of those things at Spring Arbor. I learned how to program a little bit, but I had never worked with those things. But they were still really willing to work with me and teach me how to do those things. So that brings me to training. The first 3 weeks of my 10-week internship program were all training. So I got to sit at my desk every day and do some online tutorials and interactive things like that. And it was actually really interesting because I had learned some Java while I was here, and I was able to work with that at my internship. And so when I went in, I kind of knew what I was doing a little bit, and then they just helped me to work on that a little bit to be able to do the work they wanted me to do. So I did some web development for Java as well as some Access database training. And then once I was done with that, I moved into real work. While I was there, I learned a lot about the workplace in general, just as well as auto owners' workplace. It's a very professional and conservative environment. You have to dress professionally every day, like how I'm dressed now. You work from 8 to 4:30 every day. You get an hour for lunch every day, Monday through Friday, pretty standard. But it was nice to be able to know that every day after work I could just do my own thing, and then I wouldn't have to worry about work until the next day. So that was nice. And while you're there, you're not treated as an intern in effect in like the stereotypical sense of it, like getting coffee, making copies, doing filing. But you're actually working. You're actually doing real work. You have real deadlines. You're interacting with other groups, and they treat you as if you're a full-time employee. And they want to give you that experience as, as if you're working as a full-time employee. So that's how they treat you, which is really nice, and it kind of makes you feel good about yourself. It's also a very family-oriented workplace. It's a very community-driven workplace, and so that was really nice. It's kind of similar to Spring Arbor a little bit, so that was nice too. While I was there, the internship program had 2 special days that they did for us as interns. There was a networking day and then a Michigan Summer Intern Day. So the first one, the networking day, there's about 30 other interns within the home office where I worked. And so we all got together and we were able to get to know each other, and we were able to learn the importance of professionally networking with the different people that we're working with in our departments. The next one was a Summer Intern Day. And so that's me with one of the Senior VP of Human Resources. And they got together all of the interns from the whole state of Michigan, so there were about 40 of us that time. And there was a panel of all the senior VPs from different departments, and they were able to just take us through their journey, auto owners, take us through their time there and how they came to be in these positions. After that, we had a lunch with all the senior VPs as well as some of the executive board members like the CEO, president, all those people. So that was cool to be able to get to know them on a personal level and interact with them in that way. And then after that, we had a question and answer session. This is the CEO of Auto Owners, Jeff Harrell. And so we were all able to ask him a question, just kind of get that one-on-one interaction with him. So that was really, really interesting to be able to do because, like I said, it's a huge company. So to get that one-on-one interaction was very cool. So what I learned about myself, so a lot of people think, I don't want to sit around in a cubicle for the rest of my life. It's boring, I don't want to do that. But I actually really liked it. I liked knowing exactly when I had to work. I liked having my own cubicle. I liked having my own space and knowing what I was doing every day, getting in there and not being told, okay, here's what you need to do today, but having a set of things that I was responsible for doing. And I really liked that, kind of being responsible for my own self, but kind of being on my own too. I liked that. I enjoyed it. Another thing was a lot of people think that if you're working in a big office like that, you're just some small piece, you're not that important. But even though you're small, you're still an important piece of the puzzle. You're still, you make a big impact on the bigger picture of things. And so I liked having my small set of work, but knowing that it was important to the rest of the company and that it was important for them too. Spring Arbor helped me prepare for this internship quite a bit in 2 different ways, in my technical preparation as well as my character preparation. Technically, Spring Arbor teaches Java and their computer science courses. That's the language that you learn to program with here. And so I had about 2 years of experience with that before I went to Auto Owners. So it was nice to have that kind of background, and then for Auto Owners to kind of bring me in and teach me a little more about how to use that and how to apply that in different areas. And then the character preparation, like I said, Spring Arbor and Auto Owners, they have kind of similar atmospheres. They're both community and family driven, and then Auto Owners has their 10 beliefs and values that they stick by, and things like honesty, integrity, responsibility, things like that. And so I feel like there's a lot of the character traits that Spring Arbor kind of enforces in their students. So they're very similar areas to work in, which I think why a lot of Spring Arbor students tend to go and work there and like that. Like Garnett said, the last week of my internship, I was offered a full-time position in the IT department. So it was really exciting to be able to go into my senior year and already have a job. I get to work in the same department, IT department, and within the actual same smaller group, so the HR systems. I get to work with the same people, same management, do the same type of things. So I'm really excited for that because I got to know these people for about 10 weeks and then being able to go back after graduation and get to know them a little better and get to continue with where I was at. I'm really excited for that. A lot of other students have gone on to work at Auto Owners also. To name a few, Stephen Hopper, Greg Johnson, John Nicholson, and Alex Barson were all in the IT department. They were all there, as well as Craig Box. He did an internship, I think, 2 years ago in the actuarial department, and then last summer he started working there full time too. So a lot of students like to go to work there, and you know, it's a great place to work. And then another thing I realized was with all of those students going there, we as students, when we do these internships and when we do jobs like this, we have a great impact on the next generation, if you will. When I first interviewed there and they saw that I was from Spring Arbor, they have employees there who work from Spring Arbor, and so they knew the type of worker that I would be. They kind of had that stereotype, not in a negative way, but they kind of had an idea of the type of worker I would be. And so just knowing that the way that I worked would affect how they would see the next people who wanted to do an internship, it kind of drives you to, you know, be professional and to work your hardest and to have that integrity and honesty and all those things. So that's my internship program. That's how I got involved with Auto Owners. That's how my time was there and what I'm doing from there. And so some of the things that I found helpful or that I wish I would have taken more advantage of in terms of internships is talking to academic advisors. I talked to both my academic advisor, Garnett Hogger, and then Mary Hayward a lot about different things like this, and they were the two that encouraged me to do this internship program. And so just talking with them and knowing that they have a lot of input, they have a lot of good advice, they have a lot of good experiences that you can do, and so just if you don't know what you want to do, just go talk to them, because that's what I did, and it helped out a lot with my experience. And then also John back in the career services, I didn't actually take a lot of advantage of this before, but I kind of wish that I had. They do things like Resumania, and they have different workshops and different things you can go to, like job fairs and things like that. And so those things, you have a lot of resources at your fingertips, and so just being able to take advantage of those things while you're here, that can really give you a good start for going on in life. And then another thing, kind of sounds cheesy, but take chances. When I first went into this thing, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I might hate the work, I might hate the experience, but you know, I'm going to do it and just see where it goes from there. And then at the end of my 10 weeks, if I don't like it, I can just move on and go somewhere different in life. But I ended up really enjoying it, and obviously I got a job out of it, so it was a good thing. So I just encourage you guys to, you know, look for those experiences and just take advantage of the things that you have here while you're still Spring Arbor. So that's it. Thanks.
I'll say something.
You need to turn it on.
Yeah, right now.
She did?
Yeah. There's a button on top. Is there a green light?
Now it's red. Now it's yellow. Sort of.
One more time.
It doesn't go green. I'm going to talk into it. All right. Can't hear it? Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
There. See, now it's taken. All right. So I'm going to introduce Cassandra Dunbar. And Cassie has combined a lot of things in her experience. She did cross-cultural, because we went to Argentina. I'm not getting that. Yeah, see, I knew I'd get confused. Chile. I wanted to be Argentina, because then there's a segue to the periodic chart. But it'll be Chile that she went to, because that's where she actually went. So, but she's also a Spanish major. And for a Spanish major, you have to spend time in a Spanish-speaking country, right? So she combined a whole bunch of things together with her interest in being a medical person. So this is a really good experience that she was able to take advantage of, and you did it even more than I thought you were going to do. So this is Cassandra Dunbar.
Well, I'll just speak louder then. That happens. Okay, so as Dr. Baldwin introduced me, I'm Cassandra Dunbar, and I am presenting on Chile and the medical professionals and the healthcare there. Why did I choose to go to Chile? As a Spanish major, I have to spend at least a semester abroad, and so I started with a semester, and then I ended up liking it so much that I extended it to an entire year. And why Chile? It was the only program that I found in my search of programs the summer before that actually integrated my love of Spanish with my love of medicine. And even if you're not interested in medicine, I would still encourage you to do a study abroad. Especially, you don't even have to do it a whole semester, but there are a lot of internships and opportunities that you can do over the summer, especially things like IASTE. It's a website, just IASTE.org. Things like Global Links Abroad will help you find internships in the sciences or in almost anything, actually. And you can go to awesome places like Ireland, Australia, Galapagos Islands, Ecuador, Germany, England, Spain, etc. So even if you don't speak Spanish like I do, you can still have an incredible opportunity to learn about a different culture and to experience science or technology or English in a different environment that expands your ideas and perceptions of how the world is. So these are some pictures that I shamelessly borrowed from my friends. Those are all Chile, and they were all taken by my friends in Chile. So and those are some of my friends in those pictures. So shamelessly promoting Chile. This is also Galapagos Islands. The program that I went with has this idea of redefining what you know. And so they have you take these pictures that say, blank, redefined. And so this one is just an idea of class redefined, because you're going to a different culture, you're going to a different country to experience something that is completely different from what you are used to. And so this class got to experience class outside every day doing marine biology work. And, it's class redefined. So one of the main things that you have to remember about study abroad is that it costs a lot of money. And that was one of my main deterrents. But of course, as a Spanish major, I had to study abroad. So I had to determine how I was going to raise those funds in order to be able to experience what I wanted to experience and to do what I wanted to do and had to do it academically. So one of the things that helped me was the Benjamin and Gilman International Scholarship. And what it is a need scholarship. It's based on your not your academic need, but it's based on your financial need. And so they award over 2,300 scholarships of up to $5,000 each, and the average award is $4,000. So it's not that difficult to apply for a scholarship. I mean, it seems really difficult, but it's not. And to be eligible for the scholarship, you just have to be a U.S. citizen, recipient of a federal Pell Grant, be accepted to a study abroad program, and for that study abroad to be at least 4 weeks. And many of the study abroad that they do over the summer, the internships, things like that, they're usually about 6 weeks in length. So you could get quite a substantial amount of money just to go on an awesome internship that's going to probably change your life. The other thing is you don't want the country to be on the travel warning list, because otherwise it can be really dangerous and things might happen. So they want to make sure that kind of thing does not happen. So my program, I did, the first semester was an integration of Spanish and health. And so what I did was I got to go there and I got to take 2 different grammar courses, which they sound really interesting, not. But I learned a lot, and it has really allowed me to become more fluent in that language and to understand more about the culture as well, and especially because one of those grammar courses was actually a grammar course in medical Spanish. And so it actually helped me a lot for my clinical observation internship, which we spent about a month or 2, maybe a month and a half, just learning about the healthcare system that they have in Chile and the insurance and everything like that. And then we were just kind of let go, and we got to go to places like kinesiology offices, to places where they did cancer treatment, to different hospitals, both public and private, because they don't have a lot of private health like we do here. It's half and half. So we got to go to all these different places, and we had to interact with the patients, we had to speak with the doctors, and just basically conduct ourselves very professionally. And it was, to tell you the truth, rather frightening, because you go to a different country, you don't know their customs, really you don't know, you think that you're fluent in the language, and really you're not. And so you learn a lot, and it's really stretching. And so then the second semester, when I decided to go back, like Dr. Baldwin said, he didn't expect me to be gone so long. Because I decided in October that I was going to be going back in February. So the second semester I ended up taking biology courses, because as a science major I need biology courses, a lot of them in upper division. And so I decided that I was going to take upper division science courses at a local university in Spanish. And I've got to say it wasn't easy, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but it was a really great experience. So on to the comparison and contrast of Chile and the United States. It's a huge table that took me a little while to make, but it's just a basic comparison of the standards of living and how developed Chile actually is compared to what most people think. I spoke to a lot of people when I got back, because I came back for J-term. I spoke to a lot of people who thought, oh, well, I think of Chile and I think of dirt roads and little kids playing in dirt, And it almost made me angry, because we have so much of a stereotype of what Latin America is, because we think that Latin America is all one culture, but really all of the different, just because they speak one language doesn't mean that they're one culture. And each individual country has their own little subculture and own almost completely different language. Even though it's still Spanish, they have so many different slangs that you learn Spanish in one country and you don't want to move, so you keep understanding what you learn. So basics of Chile and the United States. They have 15 states, so to speak, kind of like we have 15 states. Their main languages, Spanish, an Indian language, German, and English, because they have a lot of German immigrants actually there. They have a lot smaller of a GDP than we do, and their average income per capita is $17,000, and that's per year. So, and I put the distribution up there just so that we can kind of get an idea of what it actually means, because we think, that, we don't have a lot of money and we're poor college students, but really, if you think about it, some of us get, we work 10 hours a week and we get, $200 per month, or more or less, but that's as for college students who are trying to get by. But the average person, over 80% of the people in Chile only earn $250 a month. And yet they're still able to function, to do a lot of things, and to have a really great standard of living that's comparable to ours in some ways. But just to give you an idea that, we think we're poor, but we're not, and we're sadly mistaken in that fact. Their Human Development Index is rather high at 44. They have a lot of the same mortality rates as we do with the maternal and the infant mortality rates, and about the same life expectancy. And one of the main things that I want to point out is that although they have a population of 17 million approximately, whereas we have 313 million, most of their, about 60%, or is it 40? I think it's 40% of their population is actually centralized in one city. So they're a really long country with one main city, and it makes things really interesting when it comes to their culture and how they interact with each other. So also one of the main things that I was noticing was the physician density and the hospital bed density, because we have about 2 to 3 times the number of physicians per 1,000 1,000 people that they do. And they have 2.1 beds, whereas we have 3.1 hospital beds per 1,000 people. And that was before the earthquake of 2010, so I'll talk about that later. But we both have about the same population below the poverty line, and about the same. I think they actually have a little bit of less unemployment than we do, at 6.6 instead of 9. So this is their populational pyramid. It's in Spanish. I got it from one of my classes. But in 1950, they had a really huge population growth and just expansion between 1950 and where we are now, and that has really impacted how they live at this point in time, because they went from being malnourished, not having enough nutrition in their diet, to all of a sudden having all of this stuff because of the way that their economy grew, and that actually affects their health right now. And if you notice, I don't know if you guys have seen any of the population curves that we have for the United States, but ours basically looks like the one that they have for, the prospective one for 2025, and they're projected to reach that in 2025, which isn't really that far off from ours. And that's a huge increase in population, increase in economy, and it just shows, it kind of goes back to the whole idea that they're actually going to be experiencing the same kind of health issues that we are right now, and they're actually starting to. So this was also something that we spoke about in our class. It's true in a way. It's kind of sad, but I mean, we talked about how the more developed we become as a country, the more we tend to be going from, what seems to be ideal in the second to last to kind of nasty in the last one. So it's just they were projecting what could possibly happen to their population based on what's actually happened to ours, which was kind of embarrassing for someone from the United States, thinking, they're comparing themselves to us, but they're comparing what the problems they're beginning to have with the problems that we already have right now. So it was one of those things where you go, oh, well, yeah, move on. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is the differences that they have in their healthcare, because one of the main things that's impacting us right now, especially now that Barack Obama has been reelected, is our healthcare. And I have to admit that I'm not as knowledgeable about United States healthcare as I am about Chilean healthcare, which is really embarrassing too. But I had a class on this, so I had to learn this. I didn't have to learn about ours. But one of the things that has really struck me in the Chilean healthcare is that they have a mixture of public and private. So they have public healthcare for anyone who wants it. You can just go to a local office and sign up, and you get to the insurance. I'll get to the insurance stuff later, but you can go to the office, sign a piece of paper, and say, "Here, I want insurance," and they'll give you healthcare insurance and everything. And then private is kind of like public, but a little bit more. You have to pay more. You pay for what you get. And a lot of the private healthcare I actually found experientially is really similar to the healthcare that we have here right now. One of the things that really struck me as different too is that we think of hospitals as secondary and tertiary care, specialization and everything like that, whereas clinics are somewhere you go when you get sick, when you want your yearly checkup, things like that. Whereas in Chile, a hospital, the actual word hospital, means the secondary tertiary care for public health care, whereas clinic is secondary and tertiary for private health care. And then they went through a whole renewal of their healthcare system, where they actually changed a lot of things ever since they had a huge dictator ruling until about 1989, and after that they completely redid their healthcare system and everything. So they've gone through a lot of changes and actually improved their healthcare a lot since then. So one of the things that they did was, instead of having a healthcare system that was kind of shaped like a triangle, where all of the primary care was on the bottom, and then as you get up, you have you have less doctors with more specialization, and then those would be in the hospitals or the clinics. To an actual more of like a circle web kind of idea, where you can go from the hospital to the clinic to a different place and a different place, and they all have your information, but it makes it a lot more efficient in the way that they run things. Which to me it didn't seem that efficient, because when I got sick, I had to go to the clinic, and then I was there for 10 minutes, and then he said, okay, well, you need this, you need these tests done, but I had to go physically to the hospital to actually schedule those appointments, instead of just being able to go from the clinic and get my blood drawn and then be done for the day. So it was definitely interesting. They have there's a big difference between rural and urban healthcare too. You know, in the United States, you know, generally the urban healthcare systems, healthcare facilities and everything have more money, so they are better equipped and everything like that. You know, that's normal to us, but we can still get pretty good healthcare in the rural areas. Whereas in Chile, I don't know if you see the red dots on there, most of those red dots are the main hospitals, but they don't, I mean, there's a lot more in the city of Santiago, the capital, where most of the population is, but in the rural areas, there aren't very many, and either you have to get airlifted out, or, I mean, and you have to wait for, 8 hours for the helicopter to get there, or it can be a mess if you get into really big trouble. So a lot of people, that's another reason why a lot of people tend to gravitate towards Santiago, the capital, because that's their idea of where the good stuff is, where the good hospitals are, where the good universities are, because everything on the outskirts is kind of just, at this point, they've been rioting a lot, trying to get the education system changed, trying to get the healthcare to be better in rural areas. But the reality is that a lot of doctors don't want to work in rural areas because they get paid less and they have worse facilities, and a lot of people don't want to invest a lot in rural areas because there isn't a lot there. So it's kind of this really bad cycle. Two of the different primary healthcare things that they have, facilities that they have, are CESFAM, which stands for Centro de Salud Familiar, or Center of Familiar Health. And that would be like what we consider a clinic now. They don't have any access to a lot of laboratories or anything like that where they can do a lot of testing. So anything that they can't deal with, they send to a hospital. And then postas, it's literally a post where it's like half of everything you need. So they have maybe 2 doctors, a nurse, maybe 2 nurses, and then maybe a microscope, things like that. So it's really small, but it meets the daily needs of people who are there, who are in smaller villages. So now to the earthquake. They have 183 hospitals total, or they did before the earthquake, and 130 of them were damaged in some way, were affected. It was an 8.8 on the Richter scale, and they weren't really prepared for it, and a lot of their buildings were constructed of adobe, which I don't know if any of you know, but it doesn't stand up under earthquake conditions at all. It just crumbles, completely crumbles. So after that, 51 of those 130 hospitals were operating without problems, which is good. 54 were in need of repairs, and 8 in need of structural repairs, and 17 completely unable to be used. So if you think out of 183, 17 weren't able to be used, and those were probably in the rural areas, that's really, really, really bad. And so 63% of the hospital beds in the country were actually considered non-functional, which they don't have a lot of hospital beds in the first place, so 63 of them after a horrible earthquake. It was really, really hard on the entire country. These are some pictures of what happened. The one on the top right is a really common picture to see, or all the Chileans would recognize it as a sign of solidarity and what they went through. It was played a lot over over and over and over again on the news, just as a symbol of the destruction that had happened and of the people coming together and saying, this is still our country, we're going to fight for what we have, and we're going to do what we can to repair it. The one on the top right, I guess, I was looking at my screen, is the picture of the area that it affected, and the bottom two are kind of just to give you an idea of the things that can happen to those buildings. I don't know what kind of building the one on the left was, but it was definitely did not hold up. And those are roads. You know, this is actually a picture. I know him. He is the director, one of the directors of Campus Crusade for Christ, and he is actually in his hometown. That entire street used to be up where that railing is in the top left corner. So, yeah, there was a lot of destruction, and a lot of the destruction happened in the very poor areas. So it just made the poor poorer, and everything just kind of crumbled from there. So this was happening about the same time that they had almost kind of finished tweaking their healthcare, and now they're still redoing it right now. Some of the sources of income for their healthcare, because I know that as a country, the United States is having a really hard time funding the healthcare system because a lot of the Medicare stuff. And so some of the sources of income for their healthcare are fiscal, so it comes from the government. For the armed forces, they give their money to the armed forces and FNASA, which is the private or public healthcare insurance. It comes from their salaries. So if you have a contract, any kind of contract, business contract, you know, that pays you your wages, then 7% of those wages, 7% of those wages have to go to the actual, whichever one you choose. So you can choose private or public. Private's a lot more expensive, but you get what you pay for. Public, I mean, you still get good care most of the time. On paper, you should. And then the companies, a lot of companies will actually offer you insurance like you can have here. You know, you can get insurance to your company, the company you work for. And sometimes they give you deals, sometimes they give you better offers. And sometimes you actually have to go to a certain hospital of theirs, depending. The armed forces have their own, and the police actually have their own hospitals. So this is kind of an idea. It's in Spanish again, but it just kind of gives you an idea of what I was talking about. The FNASA, again, is the public. FFA, A stands for the armed forces. And then ESAPRE is the private. Mutuals, kind of, you know, easy there. So, and it just shows you where the aporte means how much like they actually gave. So it's just showing where kind of percentages of salaries go and how much percentage actually goes into the healthcare system. And then they have this idea, especially at least within the public system, where you will actually pay 7%, and then you'll pay a little bit more if you have more money. Depending on your income bracket, you pay more for your insurance. But then the people who have less pay less for insurance, but still get the same kind of quality care that the people who pay more get. And it's a solidarity principle. They're really big on solidarity in Chile. So basically, what you get from, or the people who have more pay more so that the people who have less can get the same kind of care. Whereas with the private care, it's kind of like we have, you know, you pay for what you get, and you know, it kind of just goes back to you. It doesn't help anyone else. Sorry. So, like I said, they're changing the system. They're trying to improve primary care, work a lot on prevention instead of having to just deal with them when they come into the hospital and say, oh, well, I've been sick for a while. I have double pneumonia and bronchitis. Can you fix me? So they're working on getting a lot of that fixed, and having less of a pyramidal structure and more of a circular structure. The AUKES is a Spanish, you know, thing. It's basically explicit health guarantees. So if you have it doesn't matter if you have public or private health care, certain things like diabetes and certain cancers, certain, you know, diseases that you're born with, they're actually covered under your insurance automatically, so they cover a certain amount of things for what you're dealing with. And that list is growing larger and larger, which means that they have to finance more and more, but it's actually a really incredible way of financing things that are really big problems in the country, so that they actually get help no matter who you are. And they have kind of priority too. So if you have one of these diseases that's on the list, you have these guarantees that you're going to get the care you need. Another interesting thing was that blood banks aren't nationalized. So each different hospital has their own blood bank, and if you need to go in to get a surgery or something, then your family members are going to come in and donate blood. So like they actually do it based on need, kind of. So almost no one I knew in Chile would just go to a blood bank and donate blood. Like, why would they do that? You know, they didn't have any family member in need. So even if your blood didn't help them, you would still donate the blood because you knew that other people might need it and other people might not have family members, but you would only go in when one of your family members was sick. So back to my experiences, a typical hospital or ER experience depended on whether it was private or public. This is a picture of an actual thing that happens in the public sectors. They don't have a lot of space and they don't have a lot of just anything for people. So they actually, when I was there, even some of the private ones had, in a normal room that we would usually see 2 people in, they had 6 people, just separated by curtains. And I mean, these women would just be pregnant and having their babies right next to each other. Like, I would be stressed out if that was me, you know? But there's nothing they can do about it. They don't have enough room, they don't have enough doctors, they don't have enough beds. So what we consider a sense of entitlement as to what we deserve, actually, I don't know, my idea of entitlement was kind of flipped around, and I said, well, you know, even though I think I deserve this, there's a lot of people who don't have it, and so I should be thankful for what I have and for the insurance that I have and for the opportunities that I have to just have my own room sometimes when I'm sick, you know. One of the other things was they don't have a specialization in geriatrics, which is the care of old people. So a lot of the things that come up with old people where, you know, they're taking multiple medicines and a lot of the doctors don't communicate with each other, that can cause a problem. So they don't actually have places either, like, well, they don't have a lot of them in nursing homes or things like that, because most of the people are actually cared for in their homes because they don't want to be in a hospital. They don't want to die in a hospital. They want to die with their families. And if they don't have, and if they're in the hospital or in a nursing home, then it's kind of an idea of, oh, well, I don't have family who wants to take care of me. My family doesn't care about me, kind of thing. Kinesiology, usually you think of physical therapy, but they do actually a lot of respiratory physical therapy instead of just the actual physical therapy with muscles that we consider right now. And dentistry is a big thing too, because most people don't care about their teeth. They just don't think about it. So, and plus dentistry, it's not really covered under insurance. So it's something that we take for granted. Everybody in America has like white, straight teeth all the time. But in other countries, it's not like that, and they really don't care. So it's one of the things that needs to change, but hasn't. And the yearly checkup, they also don't do that. They don't have a yearly checkup. They don't think about it. They don't want to go. It's just a lot of extra money, so they don't go until they're sick. Poverty in healthcare, they have access, but a lot of people think that they take advantage of their opportunities, and actually the mothers who get things that they need for their babies actually tend to sell the milk instead of giving it to their babies, the nutritious stuff, because they can get more money and just give their babies the normal kind of milk. So a lot of poorer people actually take advantage of the opportunities that public healthcare gives them. And so it's another issue that we have to worry about in ours too. You know, we always have to worry about people taking advantage of the things that are actually supposed to be good for them. In medical training, they go straight into being a doctor. They don't just say, oh, well, I'm going to do 4 years and then I'm going to decide. Right after high school, you take a test and you say, well, I'm going to be a doctor or not, depending on your test score. So it's like taking the ACT, and if you get a good score in your ACT, you can be a doctor, and if you don't, nope, sorry. So, an idea, you know, the other kinds of things that can happen really fast. They're still a developing country, even though they have a lot of statistics that say that they're mostly developed. And so this is kind of an idea of, they actually protest with, you know, fires, with blockades in the streets, and they get really angry when the police kind of try to stop them. So I actually had to get involved. I was walking home one day, and they were, throwing tear gas bombs near my house because the students were protesting because they didn't like their education system. So a reminder that all countries are not the same, that you should definitely check out before you study abroad. And then just my experience, a couple of pictures of things that I experienced at Telethon is just another issue of solidarity. They raise money once a year to help people who are disabled, and then they give them care and facilities like the one on the bottom left. A lot of the kids actually get really, really great care without having to pay a lot, without having to pay anything. And then on the right, bottom right, that's actually one of the clinics, the private clinics. So just a reminder that not all private clinics in other countries are horrible. They're actually really nice sometimes. And then my group of observation kids. So, any questions?